All right, let's try this again. I think River Dave was a little worried that he was going to make the mistakes on it, and I ended up accidentally ending the video. So let's try this again. Um, if you're watching, rejoin us on Facebook here. Um, that was my bad. I accidentally deleted the video. So let's now let's get River Dave in right now. I see Stacy. Let's see. Where's Dave? Dave, if you're in here, just like last night when we were practicing, leave a comment so I can kind of see that you are here, and then I can get you added in. This show is brought to you by River Dave's Place. I appreciate River Dave's Place for coming on as a partner for the show, and I know this is going to be a tough show, a tough crowd, but I'm really excited. This one's been a long time coming. Like I kind of said, there he is. All right, so let's get... What's up,
Hello.
buddy?
How are you doing?
Good. Already got the beer comments. Someone said he's finishing his beer.
No beers today. Couldn't figure out how to get on this thing.
Well, we talked last night, and you thought you'd be the one that'd have a hard time, and then I started it, and 30 seconds in, I deleted it on accident. So now we're doing this thing. It went a lot smoother than last night.
Yeah. Little product
So
placement there for you.
there you go. I got this one. I need some other RDP stickers though. So
Not a problem.
those are my favorite ones though. So
Absolutely. Scott at Replica Graphics made those for me for the Lickety Split guys.
I think I'm wearing your guys' shirt too. Yep. So
Yep. Yep.
we already got the RD sucks comments going. So let's get right into this thing. We talked. I think I went through our list of stuff that we talked about last night,
Okay.
and there was over 100 topics.
Oh shit.
Some of my topics and some of your topics were the same,
Okay.
but 100 topics. So I mean, this is just going to be part one for all the listeners. Just so you know, I'm sure this is going to roll into a part two. We've got a lot to talk about, and then also, hopefully in the future, we'll do some roundtable type podcast stuff like Dave wants to do. So, where did River Dave start? Why did they call you River Dave? Let's just go right into it.
So I joined a website called hotboat.net back then. It wasn't even a .com. Back in June of 2001, and I found the forums, and I wasn't on it before that, but I had heard the site had just gone from like a pay site to a free site.
Yeah.
And I was reading all the threads on there, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, this is pretty cool, man. It was just kind of entertaining to read it, and it wasn't a huge website back then. It was kind of a smaller website. Anyhow, long story short, this guy wrote this question, and I just happened to go through the exact same thing with my old Nordic, so I had the answer to it. And I actually said to myself, I'm only going to post on this one time. And so I sat there, and I was trying to think of a name, and I said, well, fuck it, I like the river, and I'm Dave, so River Dave, right? So I made the post, and then I made another post, and then I made another post, and pretty soon I was like horribly addicted to that thing. So,
So that's where the name came from. And then eventually that led, after we talked about this last night, after many websites and many forums, led into what is now your own home, River Dave's Place.
Yeah. Previous to River Dave's Place, we actually started, I started a couple other different forums. I helped a guy named Jay start HavaSuBarney.com, and then I also started one with this guy Keith Locklear and another guy Jim Denda called River Rat Live. There was an OP6C forum, and then I started River Dave's Place, and that was a little over 10 years ago. River Dave's Place, at the time that I started it, wasn't actually meant to ever be a big forum. When we started out, we didn't even have a social section in it, what we call the lounge. It was actually just a kind of a personal forum for me and my friends to kind of post builds and cool shit, things going on around
Yeah.
there. Like a way to keep in touch with all your friends. And, it wasn't private or anything, but it wasn't like we were going out trying to make it huge either, So.
Yeah. And look what it's turned into now.
Well, that was a little bit by necessity. Again, so I was back on Hotboat back in the day, and I had my little River Days Place thing, and Chris Davidson, the owner of Speedboat or Performance Boats back then, He went through kind of a thing with his brother where his brother bought a hot boat, and Chris went his other way, and he started performance boats. So Chris asked me to help him start performance boats. So I helped him get that going, and I was actually writing for the magazine for a while. And then me and Chris had a separation of the ways, as you would say, a little later in life. And so I started making RDP a little bigger. And it was a pretty good sized forum, but it was nowhere near what it is today. But it wasn't really ever like a business or a money making forum. I was always doing it for fun. We did have a couple advertisers, but that's because they die hard wanted to advertise on it.
Yeah.
And anyhow, I was a machinist. I ran an aerospace machine shop, and we specialized in weapons for the government, prototype weapons. I did guided artillery and wing deployment kits for torpedoes and all sorts of weird stuff like that. And about 9 years ago, about 8.5 years ago, some of you guys might remember Obama made a big speech on TV that he was downsizing the military. And when you're in the prototyping game for the military, obviously my customer list was like 2 customers. One of them flat said we're going out of business. The other one said we don't know. And so I hung out for about 6 months, and I was like, this building's going to sink me. So we left Carlsbad and actually moved into my family's house in Parker. We stayed there for a little bit and tried to buy a toy barn, but those guys aren't, guys down there that have all the money, they're not selling those toy barns. They just put them on there so the wives don't bitch at them anymore. And actually made 2 full price offers, and both of them were rejected. So that'll tell you how that works, right? And anyhow, the wife said she didn't want to live in Parker, so we came up here, and I found a house with a garage big enough that I could put my personal machines in it, and been here ever since. So the first couple of days here, I drove around Havasu, and I was like, well, I'm a machinist, so I'll go find some industry. But back then, that was kind of like the heart of the recession. And I don't know how many people know this or not, but Mojave County was actually the 3rd poorest county in the nation at that time. And so to say there was like no jobs anywhere, I mean, with my qualifications, I couldn't even get hired at Circle K, So I went over to Sterilite, some of the big plants, and the wages they were paying wasn't going to work out. So I looked around at the assets, and I started doing some oddball machining for some people around here. And I took Riverday's place and started going around and taking pictures of shops and telling them I could bring them work, and it kind of panned out.
Did you ever think 10 years ago that you'd end up in Havasu? Would you ever imagine that you'd live there?
No, I was a Parker guy, and there's this weird thing, and as you come out here more and more and you get familiar with Parker and Havasu, there's kind of like a rift between, there's Parker guys and there's Havasu guys, and they flat ass don't mix. I mean, Parker guys, getting them out of Parker, you can't dynamite them out of there. I mean, they all have their freaking bars that they go to. I can tell you where all my friends are on any given weekend, whether I'm there or not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Havasu guys, they always go, Parker, like Parker's poor. And I look at them and I laugh. I'm like, there's 10 times the money in that little strip than there is up here. But, they really don't mix much. So me growing up, going to the river my whole life, being a Parker guy, when my wife said she wanted to move to Havasu, I was like, what? But I came up here and, after living here for 7+ years now, I can tell you, Havasu is a better place to live, but I still prefer Parkerification, But to answer your initial question there, if you would have told me that 30 days before I moved here, I would have said you're on some kind of drugs. I would have never imagined that I was going to come to the river and live out here and do all that. I was kind of a city boy that was a machinist,
Yeah.
Not a a computer is an expensive desk lamp to me, man. I'm so computer stupid. I can barely figure out how to get on this thing. The idea that I own a website and that's how I make my living, it's still bizarre to me every day,
And I've asked people that kind of live in Havasu, and I feel like your answer is going to be different with this one. So when you live in a place like Havasu, where essentially, Havasu's population quadruples, tenfolds on a holiday weekend or on a busy weekend, what's it like? Every day can't be a vacation for you. I'm sure that you could make every day a vacation, but what's it like living in a vacation spot full time?
You know what? We're going to be a little brutally honest here. For the first couple of years I lived out here, it was a vacation spot. You work during the day and you get hammered every night. And, for me, it's like more about the weather. I grew up in San Diego. It's cool. And when you're at the river and it's 100+ degrees out, it kind of feels natural to have a beer in your hand, and it takes a lot of discipline to live out here and not be an alcoholic. And when I say that, I mean half this town, the locals, I mean they're drinkers, man. You go into the liquor store at 5 o'clock and they're buying their 6-pack or their 12-pack, which is freaking ridiculous to me. I mean, why wouldn't you buy 30s if you're going to do it every single day, right? or get a cake or something. But that's what they do, you know. And so a lot of the locals, they have this kind of rule. They say we don't drink on school nights. You know, the guys that are trying to do better for their families and their lives, they say they don't drink on school nights. So the only 2 nights that they drink is Friday and Saturday, no Sunday through, you know, Thursday. And that's been a rule that I've never lived by, but a lot of my friends do. But you know, for living in a holiday, you know, in a vacation spot, there's upsides and downsides to it. You know, especially in my job, because it's not like I wake up at 8 a.m. and I say, oh, this is what I'm going to do today. You know, like I have some plan of, oh, I'm going to write an article from 10 to 12, or I'm going to do this from 12 to 2. I wake up and I look at what needs to be done and I do it. So there's days that I'll wake up and not feel like doing anything, and that sucks, you know, but it's reality. And then there's days that you literally get up at 10 and I go to bed at 5 a.m. the next day because I'm so far behind on something and you're trying to catch up, you know. You know, back
And
to the vacation spot thing, you know, like a typical day where my kids are at school and they come out of school and it's 2 o'clock and I work until, like, let's say 4, you know, we'll go throw the house in the water for 3 hours and have an actual pretty good afternoon and come back. You know, you can't do that anywhere else.
Yeah.
You can't do that in California. And, you know, half the time I pick up my kids in my big side-by-side, you know, and if I want to go hit the dirt on the way home, we do it, you know. So
Yeah.
there's upsides and downsides to it. The downside to living out here, if I had to say anything, unless you bring your own money with you or you figure out a way to start a business out here, there's no wages. And it's really, really easy to fall into, you know, the trap of alcohol.
Well, let's go. Let's hit that question. You know, that was one of the last ones you sent me last night. You know, you've kind of gained a reputation for being a heavy drinker. You know, how has that impacted your business over the years? Positives, negatives, you know, and how, you know, are you a heavy drinker? You know?
Well, you went to Topak with us. I wasn't drinking that night because I think I had my kids with me. But, you know, yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, yes, I am a heavy drinker. You know, if I drink one, I drink 100. I'll drink every damn beer in the house, you know. And if, you know, when I grew up going to Parker, and there's a lot of my friends, you know, same way, Adam from Wire for Sound and 100 other guys that are Parker guys, man. When we kind of came up going out there wasn't a lot of cops. And when you were drinking, you know, it's not like Havasu, where Havasu, you go out in the day and everybody comes home, barbecue, and passes out at 7 o'clock. Parker's a marathon. I mean, things don't even start happening until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, you know. And you don't get home in the boats till sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 back then, because they do floating parties and float all the way home. And, you know, so yeah, you get home and you'd be stumbling up the stairs and stuff. But, you know, the ups and downs of drinking and partying and all that, again, being brutally honest, it's done more good for me than bad. You know, I mean, look at, I would have never had a name River Dave and turned it into a website and everything else if I wasn't throwing big giant parties at my house all the time. If half the boat manufacturers weren't coming down and drinking with me all the time, you know, I mean, so it kind of depends on what you're doing, you know what I mean? But, you know, the downsides, yeah, there's nights you want to take back, or you've done stupid things where you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, did I really do that? You know, but you know, it's been okay by me. But, you know, I don't know if you read the thread on RDP. There's a thread that's actually how much do you drink? And on page 6 of that thread, a couple of days ago, I said, oh, it's open mic night in the club. And the story that I wrote was so long, it actually took 4 posts to post it all. And it's the story of my entire life, from drinking, you know, at 12 years old with my older brothers, all the way up until where I almost, you know, I had a blood pressure issue at Basha's a few days, about a week ago. And, you know, I'm really not drinking anymore after that, because I have 3 kids and I want to live to see them grow older, you know. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, I took a kind of a party fun guy reputation, and I managed to leverage it into a business. And it's cost me some business. You know, I've done some dumb shit things over the years, you know, but it's gained me a lot of business too. I mean, I have one particular real estate client, and he comes into town, there's no question, like, it's 30-pack time, right? Like, it's get it out and we'll deal with it tomorrow. And that's what he
Yeah.
likes to do. And if I didn't go do that with him, then the odds are pretty high I wouldn't have him as a client. And that's not, obviously there's other skills there that are playing into that, but the fact that we
Yeah.
see eye to eye and like to go have fun is part of the draw of why he wants to work with me. So.
And I could kind of see that as well. Like, I could kind of see, in your situation and where you're located, the drinking works to a point. It
It becomes a pain in the ass because, like the locals that live here, when I first moved to Havasu, actually before I moved to Havasu, I got a PM on my website one time, and it basically said, "Hey, I'd like you to try my products." And the guy was Chip Romer of Romer Beverage, which is the Budweiser distributorship for the entire western state of Arizona. And I was like, "Well, what products are we talking about here?" And he goes, "Well, it's Budweiser, And so next thing I know, the Bud truck's showing up with pallets. Literally, they're offloading the stuff in hand trucks into my house in Parker. And I ran that program for a couple of years. When I came to Havasu, I had commercial refrigeration that me and my buddy Paul Gooding had. They were these giant coolers, the big slide coolers. I think pulled 750, 800 beers, and they were completely full. And when I first moved here, God, man, I can't even tell you them all now, but I mean, half the AC guys in town, the plumbing stuff, they all come over in the garage and drink beers for about 3 hours every single night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And eventually I had to shut that program down. I had a kid, and my wife's looking at me like, "Really, Dave? Every night?" It's been like a year, not like a couple of weekends. And God bless her, she's the most patient woman in the world to put up with me. But so we had to shut that down and kind of get it under control. But
well, Stacy just commented.
On that.
Stacy just commented, "Everyone tell me when I should take him the beer in the garage so the interview can really heat up."
Yeah, right. Right. No, it's just iced tea and product placements today, baby.
For those that are, I'm going to say this right now, for those that are leaving questions in the comments, I'm going to say at 7:30, I'll go back through and we can answer for some of those. Because we've gotten like 2 topics in, which doesn't really matter. Let's just go into that one. Tom Lee, what's the future of River Dave's Place?
That is a great question. And if we're being honest again, what I would like to do is to take what we have and try to, I run my business a lot different than everybody else. Okay. So if you're another media outlet in this industry, and I don't care who you are, I'm not picking on one or all of them or anything else, but if some manufacturer or some business that's kind of shady goes and hits one of these guys up to advertise, they're going to take their money every time and they're going to say great things about them, right? I, on the other hand, don't do that. No offense to Syed Commander, but you're not advertising on my website. You know what I mean? And there's a whole gaggle of these guys that I would just never let them do it because it's not worth the drama, right? To me.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to see happen more into the future is I have, if in current status anyways, if you see an ad on my website, I believe in it. But as I move more towards the future, I'd like to pull some of that back and make money in other areas so that when we do our boat tests and we do our product reviews, people can't say, well, of course that one got a good review because they advertised with him. You know what I mean? And I think the more that you do that, the more credibility there is. So the way that I'm planning on achieving that is I have my IT guys working on several different fronts right now. One of them is actually like a paid classified system. One of them is an event registration kind of calendar thing. And, obviously one of them is a huge referral program for real estate agents that are in California and other parts of the country that want access to the community of RDP. And, there's nothing wrong with that. If you vet a realtor and the guy's good and you have a community of 100,000 people and somebody wants to move to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and that guy sells them, then absolutely we should get paid for that. And the dollars and cents are so great in that frame that I think I could turn RDP into basically, kind of a media giant. You understand what I mean? Where it's not completely reliant upon 10 manufacturers' dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, essentially, essentially you want to take over the world with RDP.
I want RDP to keep growing, and I want RDP to, yeah, I mean, honestly, basically, I would be totally happy when Zuckerberg finally completely kills Facebook. I want to be the last one standing. You know? So, what's the next
Well,
one?
okay, so people want to hear some boats. And so we had some pretty good questions. We have some pretty good like topics on boats that Dave kind of brought up. Are you a Shiata guy or a Halleck guy?
Thane, if you're watching. No, I'm a Shiata guy, man. I grew up in Parker, and one of the first articles I actually wrote for Performance Boats tells the story of that. You know, my dad had a 21-foot Galaxy Day Cruiser, which was basically a Tahiti Splash with a Merc 260 IO, right? And we were down at Bad Knocks one day, and, you know, the way I was raised by my dad is, you know, the boat comes up, you kind of go help him tie it up, you know. And this twin turbo Shiata came up, and I was like, holy, you know what I mean? Like, this is the deal. You know what I mean? I wanted one of those since I was like 8 years old. And it was just kind of frustrating being in a Merc 260 Alpha Drive boat going, you know, 50 miles an hour, and the water would get rough and you'd slow down, and one of these Shiatas would go by you doing 110, pulling two skiers and not even caring. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm a diehard Shiata guy through and through. You know, if the house burns, catches on fire tonight, everything's getting out of the way, and I'm hooking up my Shiata and it's coming out. You know, and I do love my Howlet. My 270 is it's a boat that I've also always wanted, especially in my later years in life. You know, it's a smooth riding boat. It's got a ton of room underneath. But you know, if you're telling me I'm going to go drive a boat and I'm going to have one boat that I'm going to drive for the rest of my life, then, you know, and I get to pick it, it's going to be something like Alexi's, you know, compound deal. Although I would do turbos, I wouldn't do the compound. I think all that shit's crazy, but that's the deal. Alexi's probably shitting right now. I like just big turbo motors and keep it simple, you know. But I like the big turbo Shiatas. Probably see myself in a 24. You know, if it was a one boat for the rest of the life situation, but nothing tops a V-Drive 21 Shiata in my opinion. Although I would say a 1350 Nordic 21 would be right there with it as well. That's about as bad as it gets.
That'd be a bitchin' boat.
Ski race boats are the deal, man. You know, everybody else, they're always trying to go for speed, but ski race boats, they got to go fast, and they got to lay down the water for the skier, and they got to be able to, you know, do it for a long period of time. You know, they're basically the modern day marathon boats of yesteryear, you know. So
yeah. How many boats have you owned over the years, and are the boats that you own now, are they your favorites?
So that's kind of a trick question. I don't want to answer it, you know, incorrectly. I've owned a whole lot of boats, but the vast majority of them were projects. You know, I've had 2 or 3 Spectra 20s that I never finished, or I bought the hulls for cheap and they sat in a buddy's yard or something. I've had, I mean, realistically, because I went through a little kind of flipping process there with the mini boats, I probably had 4 10-foot Shiatas and 2 12-foot Shiatas. The 21 Shiata was actually in my dad's boat, and when he passed away, that, you know, I inherited that. And then the 27 Shiata is just, you know, me and Stacy bought it. I also had a pontoon boat. I bought a South Bay off Preston, which is what I traded them for the 27. I don't know, something else in there, but I can't, who knows. But yeah, so I think my favorites, the 2 boats in my garage are pretty much it. I mean, the only thing I would change, if I had a straight bottom 270, this would be my forever boat. It's not a straight bottom. I have enough stuff in the water that I'm not concerned about, you know, the ill handling characteristics, you know, that have been talked about over the years with twins. You know, we have twins in this one.
Yeah.
But, you know, I never thought I'd say it growing up in Parker, but I think a 30 or a 33 Howlet might be in my future, you know. But yeah, I mean, honestly, for my 2 favorite boats growing up, 21 Shiata and 27 Howlet, I mean, that's pretty hard to beat from a Parker guy standpoint. So, I enjoy walking in my garage every night looking at them. How does that sound?
I'm gonna throw this one in here. Who's your favorite board member?
Favorite board member? We talking like favorite, like friend outside of the boards, or favorite poster?
Favorite poster? I don't know.
Flying Bowtie by a long shot. Every story that guy tells, every single thing that he has ever written on my website is absolutely mind-blowing. Just the old world knowledge and everything else. Ironically enough, you know, a lot of guys give him shit, but I love T. Forceful, man. Watching that guy go through his projects, and, you know, You know, how much is, you know, he's got a very graceful way that he's gone to spamming my lounge to sell his projects over the years. But I don't care, man. I love watching the projects. And, you know, he's done enough for my website over the years with the tutorial posts on how to do this and how to do that. And the sheer entertainment, you know, when he filmed, when he went to go buy that 121 Chiata, and he got into it with this guy. You know, guy says it's perfect. He goes, this isn't perfect. And literally, like, almost got in a fist fight on camera. I laughed so freaking hard watching that video and some of his other videos that he's made. You know, there's so many great posters on that website. You know, another one, Go Fly. He doesn't, you know, he's out traveling the country right now because he's enjoying the life with his wife. But, you know, back in the day, you know, he was doing a turbo or a blower or something for a 2-stroke outboard. He's making everything in his own machine shop. You know, I love custom stuff like that and seeing people think outside the box and do things like that. Racy was another one that's double throwdown. You know, like, that guy built his own throttle pedal for a welder and made it Wi-Fi. And he built every single part of it. Like, he did the coding to the Wi-Fi to the welder pedal. I don't know anybody that can do that stuff. He can give me $1 million, I can make that happen, you know? So there's a lot of really cool things. And I can't say that there's a favorite or not a favorite because each one has their own thing, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Tom's pictures, you know, Pink Taco or Tommy Gun Images now, we just recently changed it. I think he's trying to become more professional now, which is good.
What, Pink Taco's not professional?
I guess not. But, you know, his pictures and you know, even J-Bo, as much as me and him love each other on Facebook with the politics. Speaking of which, hey J-Bo, come right there for you. You know, Jay's pictures I've always thought were amazing. That, you know, there's just RDP is so, it changes day to day, right? Like, so it's kind of hard to say. That's a great question though. I wasn't prepared for that.
That was actually, you know, one of the listeners, watchers came up with that one. And, you know, Tom, it's kind of funny because when I did Tom's show, you were the one kind of throwing in the questions in the middle. And
yeah, well, that's because
you know,
I know Tom and I wanted to have fun with him. You know?
Tom just brought up a question that I don't think we had on our list. But, you know, what is your favorite boating event and why?
Damn, that's a good one. So the coolest things I've ever done on a boat, okay? The coolest thing I've ever done on a boat, I have to thank AJ Roniak, and it would be the Key West World Finals. And we took his center console down the coast of Florida from Fort Myers all the way to Key West. And that, it's technically not, I mean, it's a boating event because it's a boat race, but it's not like a boating event like a regatta or something like that. That was the coolest thing I've ever done on a boat to date, bar none. I will absolutely do it again. As far as a traditional, what I think he's asking for, boating event, I love Desert Storm, man. It's here in my backyard. I get to see all of my members. You know, we throw the after party for the entire deal, you know what I mean? And it's as crazy as it is and as much work as it is and as much money as it costs us, it's my favorite event by far.
I could see that. I mean, like you said, the fact that you guys live in Havasu and the fact that Desert Storm is right there, you know, I'm sure it still takes a lot of work and a lot of money to get there, but it's probably very rewarding seeing something like that happen in your guys' at your home, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, we don't technically put on the event, but if you ask anybody, I mean, honestly, anybody that really knows the event, the crown jewel of Desert Storm is the poker run and the RDP after party, right? The shootout has kind of been hit and miss forever. I mean, it's always gone off. There's a lot of misconceptions about that.
Yeah.
But other than Greg Olson putting up 192, I mean, we've never had, I don't know why, you know, but we've never had huge numbers at that shootout, which kind of sucks. I always hoped somebody would come out here and just, you know, put up numbers like they do at Lotto. And now that they went to that 3/4 track and all that shit, I don't think they're ever going to do it. But, you know, the shootout, that's always been kind of a bust for me, even though it's fun. And, you know, we rent the houseboat, so we're up there. We can see the whole thing. The two highlights of Desert Storm for me are you know, watching the poker run, because we go and we do a big raft up with everybody. And there's other people, you know, River Whips, they do their raft up. And there's a whole, you know, finagle of raft ups up and down that deal.
Yeah.
But, you know, go hang out with all your friends and drink beers and then, you know, watch the guys go by. For me, even though they've toned it down over the years, that whoever's first to card stop one is still a big deal to me, because that's kind of what I've always followed, you know?
Yeah.
And, but, you know, that's kind of my favorite boating event would be Desert Storm. Lotto, if you're on a boat, it's a badass event. If you're on the land, it sucks. And thank God for Adam Serafin. I don't know if he's watching or not, but we get to ride around with Adam and his badass Outer Limits all the time. So we get to see the whole lake and go into those bars and go into that performance boat center. Oh my God, if you've never been there, that's a bucket list item for boaters. But still, I got to give the nod to Desert Storm just because it's here, like I said. And for me, getting to see all the RDP members and that party, that party, and a lot of people don't know what that is. It's not big exposure for us. We're actually trying to keep it more catered to the RDP crowd. Yeah. It's our big thank you for our members for choosing us year in and year out, right? So
yeah. Yeah, and this was actually the first year that I went to Desert Storm, and I just couldn't believe the community that comes together at Desert Storm, whether it's from the parade going through the channel or the poker run or the street party. I mean, the street party is freaking cool.
Yeah, and the street party's where it's at. Yeah,
it's so cool.
I screwed up earlier. It wasn't the poker run; it's the street party and the RDP after party. Is the two highlights of Desert Storm. You're making me nervous, Jake. I don't get nervous.
Why? Why?
I don't know. Like I said, I always ask the questions. I don't ever answer them.
For those that are watching right now, if Dave looks a little tired and I look a little tired, it's because our phone call didn't end until 4 o'clock this morning when my phone finally died.
Yeah.
So. But
can you make out what's right behind me over there? Can you see what that is?
You're
on the boat. I knew I should have got it closer. It's a Horizon sticker and a Wire for Sound sticker.
Oh, okay.
It's a product placement. When you're on RDP, you wear a lot of hats, right? You try to help out your buddies where you can.
That's right. So. Who are, who's someone, and this wasn't another question we didn't talk about, but who is someone as far as like a advertiser or, maybe even a friend that's been with RDP from the beginning and always stuck by your side?
That's a great question. And I'm not sure I know how to answer that.
There's some product placement right there.
Absolutely. Like I said, we have a lot of hats that we wear, and I'm sure you'll see a few more throughout the interview. But Nordic Boats, they have been with me for the beginning, but ever since Randy Davis took it over and Thane's been in there, Nordic has been a very big supporter of RDP. Honestly, one of the guys that I can't thank enough would be Bob Leach. Bob Leach has been a huge supporter of RDP throughout the years, and even when he went through BK, he never missed a payment to RDP. He paid personally, and a lot of people don't know that. And the relationship and the website was that important to him that he felt that he had to do that. And I offered several times. I was like, Bob, let me do something for you, and he was always like, you do enough. But Bob Leach has been a diehard supporter of RDP. I don't have my advertising list in front of me, but the biggest one, my biggest single boat manufacturer would be Davis Boat Manufacturing, which is obviously Pallet and Nordic. Right. DCB's been around forever. I mean, they've been on my website, God, for probably 7 years too. They're a smaller advertiser, but their products are so cool. We got to write them up, as big as everybody else, just because they're DCB, right? Like you can't not write them up. So, but that kind of brings up an interesting thing. I'm not sure if Tony or Jeff Johnson are watching, but I owe them a bit of an apology. I went out in their M33 with them and filmed it and everything, and I was going to do a really nice article on it. I'm really impressed with the boat, right? But we had some personal things happen. My wife, was doing a lot of work with the real estate stuff, and obviously me, I'm not going to turn down the money, right? So that kind of pushed it out a little bit. Then Desert Storm happened, and then unfortunately the lickety split thing happened, and then my wife's mom came out here and she ended up in the hospital, so I was playing dad duty again, and that article that I was going to do for him got pushed out like 2 months, and it got to the point where Tony got kind of pissed off about it. He's like, Dave, if you don't like the boat, you can tell us. And I'm like, dude, the boat's sick. But I'm a one-man guy, and as a one-man guy, if Tony gets sick and doesn't go to DCB for a week, they keep building boats, right? Well, if Dave gets sick or something happens in Dave's life, everything stops, right? And there's no more, article. There's no more of this. There's no more of that. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do is staff up and get more people writing and more people doing things to keep that creative content going. You know, Tom's coming back to work for us writing again. Eric Briner's out in Northern California doing whatever the hell he's doing right now, covering a couple of events. And I'm trying to get that more flowing and trying to get that, you know, where other people can go do some of the stuff that I do. But, you know, I really feel bad about that M33 article because if you haven't been in the boat, I mean, it really is, you know, I'm going to save it for the article, but it's the only cat I've ever been in that, you know, gets on plane with virtually zero bow rise and at like 25, 30 miles an hour, it actually leans the inside. It's the only cat that you could actually like tow kids on a two bind and then turn around and go run 125 miles an hour. You know, it's a legit, like, multi-use boat. And generally cats are kind of, they haul ass and they go over mediocre chop pretty good, but they're pretty worthless for anything else, you know?
Yeah.
The fact that it can do those things was going to be the highlight of my article on that boat. But, you know, sorry, Tony, if you're watching, I will get it done, you know, as soon as you guys tell me you want it now. But
Well, and that kind of brings into my kind of the next topic is, you know, what boat has impressed you the most over the past year? There's been a lot of different stuff that's come out. You know, Nordic put the huge boat out for Desert Storm. Obviously, you just talked about the M33 with the DCB. You know, as far as like a good all-around boat, you know, what boats really impressed you?
Young man with a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of different categories there. Myself,
I know there's a lot of different categories.
you know, if I'm a baller and, you know, I think an M35 with 860s, you know, it doesn't run 170 or you know, whatever it is, but the maintenance intervals are over double that of a 1350, and the boat still runs damn hard. You know, I mean, that's a great package.
Yeah.
You know, something a little more, you know, let's say you have a couple of kids or something. Of course, you don't want an M35. The boat's useless. You know, you're not going to tow a kid on a tube, or, you know, the kids they're not even you know, other than going really fast for a short amount of time, they're not comfortable to hang out in for a day. You know, so there's all kinds of categories. To hit a couple of them, best bang for the buck, Tahiti, bar none. You know, Todd will build you a full-on deck boat, and it's like 60 grand. And he used to rig for Eliminator, so it's actually nice. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how people could do that. Or, you know, I don't even know how he does it, but he does it all the time. All the 400 boats are crazy, man. The 27 Speedster with 400, 28 Speedster. Yeah. You know, the 33, you know, M33. I haven't been in an MTI 34 yet, but some of my friends that's been in them, they say they're unreal. I did watch them running down in Key West, and watching that thing skip across some of those rollers, I was like, wow, you know, that's a pretty cool package. You know, running in, you know, Bullhead Bullies boat, that 28 SS Nordic. We ran from Havasu all the way to Davis Dam and back, and we left at like 9:45. We were back by noon. We went under like 80 once around a corner. You know, you know, it's pretty unreal what Merck's putting out. You know, you can run 100+ miles an hour for hours on end in these things. It's unreal. You know, so it kind of depends on the category. If you're asking me like which boat I would probably want to have, dude, I'm fat. You know, I want something with air conditioning, but. But, you know, ultimately, I see myself either ending up in a center console with air conditioning in the front, or some kind of berth underneath the center console. You know, price no object. What boat would I have? I mean, a Huntress wouldn't be bad for a cigarette. Those things are pretty wicked.
Yeah. You know, and this kind of goes along with that same question: is what do you fit? I think we asked Alexi this question as well. What do you, what's your feelings on, you know, all these new boats that are coming out with twin 400s or twin 300s, you know, with kind of the outboard craze that everything's performance boats are going towards?
You know, I don't understand the logic of it, to be honest with you. I really don't. I mean, I get it. The outboard guys, for years and years and years and years and years, they've said, you know, you can get these things and you can put them on pen and run them all the way down the lake and this and the other. Go ask any two-stroke outboard guy, and they're going to tell you that exact same sentence. And I'm going to tell you, every single person I know that ran twin two-strokes, they had lower unit failures. They got this failure. I mean, they break more often than anything I've ever seen. Yeah, you know, wide open to wide open, a car boat motor versus an outboard two-stroke, the motor's going to outlive it. But generally, the counter-rotating lower on the old two-stroke ones, I mean, they're not as reliable as people make them sound. So I guess I don't quite understand how taking an engine, supercharging it, making it put out an incredible amount of power, and then sticking it on its side could somehow be more reliable than a standard engine, you know. But it is, and that you know, and you know, Mercury figured it out, and obviously so did, you know, Yamaha and everybody else, right? But to me, I think if they just built, you know, probably bigger displacement engines and didn't try to pull every single ounce of power out of them, I think they'd be more reliable than the outboards. I mean, look at a Merc 260. You can run those things for like 10,000 hours and not have a problem, you know. And you can, I mean, literally just put the throttle down and let the thing go out towards Hawaii, and it'll probably get there, you know, if it had enough fuel to get there. I mean, so I think a lot of the reason why the IO boats are probably not considered as reliable as the outboards is because they're trying to pull so much power out of an IO boat, you know, and they don't like the high RPMs like that. But you can cam them, and just like an outboard, it's the same thing. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not an engine builder, man, but to me it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why an IO boat would be less reliable than an outboard boat, but people claim they are. But that being said, I got a 98 Hallett behind me with probably 780 hours on it that would disagree, because I don't know how many high performance outboards have 780 hours on them without rebuilds, you know.
I gotta give Paul Gooding some love, because Paul's been sitting here leaving questions for you, and Paul, they're cruising by so fast. We're having another hat change really quick. Oh wow, yeah, there we go, maxed out. I got to give Paul some love, though. Paul asked, you know, tell us about Navigator Hill.
Navigator Hill?
Let's throw that one in there.
Navigator Hill, years ago, I had my buddy Brad. I used to work for Brad Bolger, and years ago, there's this guy at a car lot. It was kind of an exotic car lot, and we would pay him $500 a month, and we could drive basically whatever we wanted off the car lot, right? Not the Ferraris and stuff, but you know, the normal stuff. And my first Navigator was a 2000 Navigator, and it was one that I took off his car lot to go drive, and I took it out of the river, and obviously we were drinking. And one of my buddies was like, you know, I bet you won't make it up the hill. And I was like, I'll bet you it will. And the hill's pretty gnarly, to be honest with you. And I ended up off-roading that truck all over Parker all weekend. And on the last day on Saturday night, I off-roaded up Navigator Hill. I ended up blowing the floorboards off it, so I ended up having to buy the truck. But that's Navigator Hill. Navigator Hill is, for those wondering, it's the big giant hill right across the street from the Keys down Parker. So,
okay.
And you can tell Paul, my 2006 Navigator actually out-climbed his Raptor out in the sand. He remembers that when we were off-roading. So.
I had to throw one of those in from Paul, because Paul and Tom and you know, everyone, we appreciate the questions. I don't think with the rate they're coming in.
Alexi told me he's planning on sending some curveballs later. He was texting me right before I logged on.
Alexi's on. He keeps on talking about vodka. I think he's drinking vodka. I don't know.
He probably is. I think he's on vacation right now.
He's in Hawaii right now, yeah.
And he is drinking vodka.
What's the story between RD Sucks?
So years ago, on Hotboat, again, this was actually Hotboat, turned into hotboat.com, not the one that is now, but previous to this. There was a guy that asked some kind of tech question, and it had something to do with an outdrive. I don't remember what it was, but it was another situation where I had just gone through it with my Nordic. And anyhow, so the guy asked a question, and I gave him an answer, and some other, I don't know, backyard mechanic or something was like, that guy's full of shit, he's stupid, you know, blah, blah, don't listen to him. And I was like, well, actually, I'm right. And then things got kind of personal, and I'm kind of an asshole, as it turns out, even though I'm a super nice guy, now that I run RDT. So I went, and I think I had somebody from Mercury Racing write me an email. I had like Lee from Chiata write me an email, Mike from Prime Marine write me, like all the kings of the industry. I had them all write me an email, and I just cut and pasted all their emails into the thread that said the exact same thing I did, and I put their titles, you know. And so this guy, it just demolished him. I mean, it flattened him, right? This Mr. Expert guy, you know, literally every single like king of the industry was like, no. And anyhow, JBB, Jeff O'Brien, he put on there after that, he put RD Sucks, right? And every now and again, whenever I'd make some post or you know, back on Hotboat, I was fairly controversial. Every time I get an argument with somebody, you'd say RD Sucks. And later on in life, some haters tried to like run with that. And then JVB started making stickers, and so we started giving out the stickers, because why not, right? So, but it's just kind of a trademark, and it's stuck. I mean, shit, I got it on my toolbox, and it's everywhere. I laugh when I see it. And I like it just as much as the RiverDaysPlace.com stickers, because people will ask, what does Artie Sucks mean? And then instead of just seeing a domain name that the guy actually has to explain, he's like, well, it's this website, it's River Days Place, you know what I mean? So I think it actually gets more of an impact,
Yeah.
kind of that way. So
it's funny how you can, and I feel like you're really good at this, at taking, the hate and making it into good. So,
well, part of especially running RDP, I guess you would say, is kind of like handling all the politics that go on. You got to make sure that all your guys are all represented there. Horizon, Preston, Tina, how you guys doing? And it's yeah, there's some haters out there. Honestly, I got past all that a long time ago. And there's a couple of guys out there that probably dislike me for whatever reasons, but dude, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, right? I've never gone out of my way to intentionally do somebody wrong since I've owned this website. And if there's situations where maybe two members get in an argument, and you got to pick one, right? Like, they're not going to coexist. It doesn't matter how hard you try.
yeah.
So you kind of like just lay ground rules, like, dude, the next guy that does this shit, is gone. And sure as shit, somebody will do it, and that guy's got to go. And well, then maybe that guy hates you forever, but it's not me that he hates, even though he would hate me if you asked him. But it's the situation that he hates, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. You can't let it keep you up at night, And I got like I'm not gonna get into who it is, but there's this guy like from 20 years ago that literally like to this day is like crazy fucking stalker guy, right? Like he used to like PM Tom on Facebook and shit, and it's like, dude, nobody cares, you know what I mean? Nobody gives a shit. Grow the fuck up, So I don't know, like for me, I try to get more about the boats and the articles and the fun and the beers and the chicks and the good times and the parties, and you can't like focus on that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and honestly, as big as RDP is, I mean, it's, I told you last night, we're 95,000, 96,000 a month right now.
Yeah.
And if I got like 3 guys on the internet that hate me, dude, I'm killing it, like Trump's kicking ass and half the country hates him, so, like if 3 or 4 guys, dude, fuck them. I won't listen.
This is a question that it's popped up probably 150 times now, and I'm just going to say China buffet.
It's a post on my website. I went and talked myself eating into this stupid China buffet restaurant here in Havasu, and I'm fairly convinced that my review of that restaurant is ultimately what put them out of business. But if you go on the website and you just search China buffet, there's a long story, and it's very in detail. I'm surprised that's what they'd want to ask. Here you go, guys. I can't see the questions. You can ask any question you want, and I'll answer it honestly.
Okay, I just thought of something too.
Favorite boats? Huh?
I just thought of something too. For those that are leaving all the comments and all the questions, for part 2 of River Dave's show, I'm going to go back through and I'm going to pull out all these questions, and that's going to be all part 2. We're getting another hat change in there. I know you want to do it.
This one's a small medium. Preston didn't have a Horizon, a large one when I went by there today. So, I figured he'd get some love. He sold me my Howlet, right?
I want to talk about East Coast and West Coast boating.
Sure.
What are the biggest differences?
Okay.
You can do like a versus kind of thing. Why is the West Coast better? Why is the East Coast better? You've experienced both. You just talked about like one of the funnest times you've been on a boat was in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about that.
So East Coast boats and West Coast boats, right? West Coast boats generally, historically, have always had more flair, more bling to them than East Coast boats. West Coast boats are gelled, East Coast boats are painted. I mean, these are all kind of the common basic things that most people would know. West Coast boats traditionally had a lot of billet parts in them. East Coast boats were kind of, just different stuff. They'd always have like more stainless tubing and, shit like that, right? East Coast boats, though, I mean, some of these guys, I mean, they've changed it up. You know, if you ask me what's one of the best rigged boats out there right now, I mean, it's really tough to compete with Cigarette, you know, and some of those guys, right? Generally, as far as cats go, East Coast boats are true tunnels. West Coast boats are center pod boats. East Coast boats are going to be way better in rough water. Again, these are all generalities, but smooth water, flat water, they're going to porpoise. You know, West Coast boats, they'll have a small window, but they'll get through it. Some of these East Coast boats, man, they look like a friggin' flipper when they come out here. They're, you know. But I've seen I've seen a couple of them. Like, dude, that's embarrassing. You know, like I wouldn't even run it. You know.
Yeah.
But on the same token, you take that boat, you go out in 3-4 footers, and that guy's doing 100, and you couldn't do that in most West Coast boats. You know what I mean? Well,
yeah.
Any of them for that matter. But well, cats being the thing there. But as far as East Coast boats, you know, the one thing that I will say that I firmly believe it's coming. Like in my heart, I believe it. Because now that I've gone to Lotto, and now that I've gone to Key West, and I've gone around the country and the Texas Outlaw Challenge and to these other things, the center console, when you go to Florida, that is like our deck boat, like our magic deck boat. Everybody's got a center console, right? They are literally the Suburban of boats, dude. You can go out in rough water. You can take all your friends with you. You can hose them out at the end of the day. They all got monster freaking stereos. You know, they're just an extremely, extremely functional package. And, you know, on the West Coast, hey, buddy, oh, there's my son.
There we go.
Hey, Kicker Dan, I don't know if you're watching, but he's got his kicker hat on. Anyhow, go inside, buddy. After going out there and experiencing the center consoles and the capabilities of what they have and what they actually are and how they're used, I don't see how they cannot be successful on the West Coast. You know, the deck boats are cool, but, and I don't know how often you come to Havasu, but anybody that's out here that's grown up going to Parker and grown up going to Havasu, the water gets rougher every single year. Every single year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. In the short amount of time that I've lived here, I used to go out in my 21, and 21 Chiatos will run through huge water. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they ski race them in the ocean. But the water on Havasu on a holiday weekend, and in Parker especially with these freaking wakeboard boats, it is so flipping big. It's almost indescribable. Like, what the hell made that? You know, like, where does this come from? And I don't see deck boats. I mean, I've been out in all my buddies' deck boats, and I'm not going to mention brands and manufacturers, but dude, sooner or later they're going to come up short. You know, they're gonna shovel one, and if you shovel it and it goes down, God help you, man. Everybody's going out the front. You know. So, and there was actually, you know, there was a guy that got seriously hurt by that up in Needles a little while back. He was crossing a ginormous wakeboard wake, and he was the first week with a boat. He didn't know how to drive it, but you know, he went up and boom, and he shoveled that thing. And I see, like I said, I see the water getting rougher and rougher and rougher. And when you get into true big water, I don't care what any of those guys say on the forums. Aviv, I don't always rule ass on a cat in big water. And medium lake chop, yeah, the cat's ride smoother because they can skim across them and you can quarter them and do things like that. But when the water gets nasty, if it's 4 or 5 foot, I'll take that Howlet over 30-foot cats, you know, or 32-foot cats, and I'll run out there no problem, you know. So
when you went right into my next question. My next question was cats or V's. So,
you know, it kind of depends on the application. For me, I'm going to take a V all day long, and it's not just because I grew up in V's. It's because I'm just a V guy. You know, I've just always liked them. You know. That said, you know, if my goal is to go out and go rip around and have fun, it would obviously be a cat. But the V's are so much more functional. I mean, there's more storage in them. They can run in bigger water. They can run at multiple speeds, which is something that cats don't really do well, right? Cats generally perform like shit until they get into their window of performance, and then they run good. You know, they're either porpoising or they're turning like shit, which actually, if you take the Trace Martin class, they will teach you how to make that lead to the inside, even if it's out of its performance window. They can teach you to lean them up to the inside going slow. Keep that in mind, cat owners. But for me, a V, it's a more practical boat. It's got a lot more functionality to it. And you can go as slow as you want or as fast as you want, and the boat's just a boat, you know. So I like V's, personally.
How do you feel about wakeboard boats?
You know what? I know the expected response here is going to be like, hey, the wakeboard boats, but realistically, I think they're great. I think they're great family boats, man. I think they're great
Yeah.
party platforms too. I mean, my buddies had them down in Parker. We take them to the bars. Bill Keene has, his family has one, and we spend some time on that, and some other friends. I actually kind of borrowed one for a couple of years, and we ran it for a year or two, and it was great. I don't think the problem is so much the boats. I think the problem is the owners. The owners are they're not considerate, man, and it's not just a sign of wakeboard people. It's kind of a sign of America. These guys, they'll go and the freaking ballasts are automatic too, which is what pisses me off, right? Like, it's not like they're loading hundreds of pounds into the freaking boat, You push the freaking button and it drains, right? And you push the button and it fills up. This is not complicated, but these guys that fill this fucking ballast up, and they'll drive these things literally like, and they're not even towing anybody, right? And so they're creating this. It's not even just the initial wakes, right, that come off that are surfable, literally surfable, right? Which everybody knows, but I'm like, some of these things 4.5, 5 feet tall, right?
Yeah.
It's not just that wake that they're creating. Behind the boat, there's a series of rollers from the displacement of the boat, and those rollers, one boat will screw up half of Parker Strip for an hour, just by one pass, because those rollers don't go away, man. They just keep going downriver, And I get it, I get it. If you're like some pro grade surfer that needs a 4-foot wave and whatever, I get it. But if your kid's learning how to wakeboard and he's 5 years old, you don't need to stack out a 4-foot wave, man. You really don't. The kid sucks. He's just trying to stand up. And the bigger that wave is probably just scaring the shit out of him anyways,
Yeah.
So, I guess I don't understand why they got to do that. And especially in places like Parker where there's bars and there's docks. These freaking guys, man, they'll buzz the docks. They'll put boats on top of the freaking dock. It happens. Ask any of the bartenders down there. It happens probably once or twice a week, and they'll go by, and it's like, God damn, dude, really? And I'll tell you, I'm probably the most conservative right-wing guy you've ever met in your entire life, but I swear to God, there's going to be government intervention if those guys don't knock it off, because somebody's going to either get hurt, like that guy in Needles, he got pretty hurt over that deal. Somebody's going to get killed, or somebody's going to get severely beat up to the point where it's going to make news or something. And people are going to say, okay, we finally have to do something about that. And that is a scary, slippery slope, because if you open that can of worms of, well, that wake's too big, where does it end? What wake's too small and what wake's too big? I know goddamn well my Halleck puts off a massive wake when it's getting on plane. It's huge, you know what I mean? Once it's on plane, it's not that big, but, I don't want some legislator telling me that it's, that this boat puts off too big a wake and I can't drive it. I just don't understand why they can't be responsible citizens and try to, understand that they don't own the river, right? I don't own the river. You don't own the river. They don't own it either, right? Like, why not be considerate to other people? So that would be kind of my thing.
My take on wakeboards is, they're beautiful boats. They're very well put together. They're beautiful boats, most of them.
They're shit boxes, dude. Are you high?
I've seen some really nice wakeboards.
Oh, yeah. They decorate the hell out of it with tens of $1,000s of billet.
Yeah.
But those things are chopper gun boats, dude, man. The heavier they are, the better. They're not like nice hand layup boats. They're chopper gun shit boxes. I will say they put some pretty impressive electronics in them and stuff nowadays to control all the features and this, that, and the other. But as far as a hull is concerned, no, they're junk, dude.
They've been the same hull for, 20 years.
No, some of them changed. Malibu and some of those guys are actually putting some pretty serious engineering behind those things to try to maximize, wake peaks. I don't know. Let's talk about something else. I hate wakeboard boats. Although I probably will have one, RDB, so don't please crucify me. I got 3 kids, but they're going to want to get into tow sports sooner or later, So.
Stacy just asked, does Dave want government wake regulations?
I think we just covered that with an answer or don't. I don't want government anything. I want government to go stay out of my life and preferably tax me less. So.
Well, we're at an hour, and
are we really?
Yeah, we're right at an hour right now. So I was thinking let's go through like 2 more, and then let's decide on air when we're gonna do the next one.
Ask the guys if they want to keep going or not going. I don't care. You tell me whatever you want to do, man. It's your world. I'm just living in it.
I'm not sure if my phone's. Do you know what? I can plug my phone in though. I have phone dying issues. If you haven't realized that.
Yeah, I kind of got that.
My phone never got charged last night.
Plug
So,
it in. I'm sure you're sitting at your desk.
yeah. Um, this show will end automatically at an hour and a half too. So we got to end before an hour and a half. Facebook taps at an hour and a half. So
I don't know anybody that want to look at my ugly mug for an hour and a half, anyways.
I don't know, man. You still
Well,
got
bang out the
100.
last two. What's their hardest questions or your hardest questions?
How let's see. I saw another one. Oh, this is one I want to get into. What makes a custom boat, and who truly builds a custom boat anymore?
Ooh, that is a great question. And nobody's gonna like the answer, dude. I mean, they're really not. I don't think a lot of people build custom boats anymore, And there's a difference between custom and nice. I'm going to define that right now, okay? Some of the most regarded manufacturers on the West Coast build exotic, crazy, nice shit. But is it custom? Like, was it built for that customer? Was it literally? The answer is no. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not going to use DCB here as the scapegoat, but realistically, I mean, you can go down to DCB and you get an option chart and you just check what options you want, and then you tell them what gel coat you want.
Yeah.
And that's not, to me, a true custom boat, right? When you go down to Chiata and you say, okay, I want a 24-foot Chiata, they say, okay, well, what are you going to use it for? Well, I'm going to use it for skiing on Arrowhead. Okay, well, then it's going to be a straight V all the way back. Oh, we're going to be up in the Delta. Well, that's smoother water. They'll put a Delta pad in it for you. I mean,